But at my age, at that time, that just seemed like the right thing to do. You know, it's not a big deal. I'll just be the bad girl. I'll be the one using all of this men. I'll be the one making them seem irrelevant and just for sex. The topic of hearing God always confused me. You find that in certain churches, the pastor or the pastoral body tend to be the only ones who seem to hear God. This caused me to believe that hearing God is for the spiritual elites. The series of events that followed after I was molested as a child just seemed pivotal to who I am today. Regardless of your age, one thing is for sure, your expectations in life will inevitably be shaped by your experiences. So whether you are 80 years old or you are 8 years old, you see the world through the eyes of the experiences that you have already had. And for me, all I could see was a world where men wanted to get just one thing from me. I had a very strong conviction that that was all that it was, and it shaped my belief. I began to see the world through the lens of that experience as someone who was molested, and not just molested because I was repeatedly violated by not just the one person, but other several people that happened to be around me at the time. It affected my self-esteem, obviously, because that was all I could frame my identity with. It seemed like that was all that it was to me, the girl who men want to sleep with. And I was pretty young, at a very impressionable age, and so definitely, of course, that was a big part of what shaped my mind and shaped my view. I was beginning to believe certain things, not just about the world, about myself, about God, about sex, about everything. I had a lot of mixed emotions. I was very angry, but at the same time I started to wear this, I don't know, bad girl vibe.
She belongs to the streets.
I was feeling like a bad girl that was using all these other men. I wanted desperately to rephrase the narrative. I did not want to be the girl that men were just sleeping with. In order to conceal that reality that, okay, all of these men were coming into my life to do this one thing, in order for me to reshape it and conceal it and mask the pain, I tried to be the bad girl so that then I could say I'm not the pawn, but instead I'm the one. It was a very backward thinking, I know. But at my age, at that time, that just seemed like the right thing to do. You know, it's not a big deal. I'll just be the bad girl. I'll be the one using all of this men. I'll be the one making them seem irrelevant and just for sex. No serious commitment. In fact, I'm going to be using all of them. And because I believe that, I started to explore. I started to explore in the garbage. I don't know a lot about picking up stuff from the garbage, but one thing I know is regardless of what is there, it is junk. So even though there are people that tell you they recycle, they pick up stuff, it is junk. It is someone's junk that they threw out. So you will always find junk in the garbage. And so I was exploring in the garbage. I had multiple relationships at the same time. I was pretty young. And one of the things that contributed to that experience being possible is the fact that I seemed older than my age. Generally, people tend to tell me that, oh, okay, you don't talk like your age, you don't seem like your age, you don't appear like your age. So I think it had more to do with the way I presented myself, the way I spoke, the way I conducted myself generally. And people would always assume that I was older than I actually was. They would always assume. It had nothing to do with my physical size, because I was not a big girl. I met this guy that I cannot remember his name. It's crazy. I have tried. In trying to prepare this video, I have honestly tried to remember his name, because I mean, what is a story without names? But I can't remember. I cannot remember. I don't know anymore what his name is. And to think that at that time in my life, it seemed like a very interesting relationship. He was in his 30s, let's say 30, 32, thereabouts. I went really far. This was like twice my age, far. And it didn't seem problematic to me at all. It was fine. It was perfectly okay. He lived pretty close to my parents' house. Not like close, but more like the next street, kind of close. You know how it was back then. I say back then as if I'm that old. But in the era of extra cool, one evening he wanted to take me out and I was up for it because, you know, bad girl vibes. At that time I was still taking alcohol. Nonsense. Bitter nonsense. We went out. I met a couple of his friends. We just hung out in this outdoor setting, sat down, took drinks, had fun, introduced me. I don't know why guys do these things. We are not that serious, but you are already introducing people to me that I'm your wife and I'm this and that. I'm like, guy, you're like boyfriend number 3. Calm down. We danced. We had what seemed to be like fun, and then we left. And so he dropped me off. We came down from his ride and he leaned towards me for a kiss. All of a sudden there was this hesitation that came over me. This is weird because this is not something new. I had done things that were way deeper than just a kiss. It was not the fact that we were outside, it was dark, and so it didn't matter. I didn't care. But all of a sudden there was just this hesitation that came over me. I had kissed him before, so it's not like it was something new or that there was a big deal about kissing. In that moment, something said to me, Voki, there is more to you than this. More to me as in how? I didn't probe at that point in time. I just didn't feel like kissing him anymore, and I just left. That singular statement that had dropped in my spirit, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who it was. It certainly was not my mind, because my mind was set on destruction, so to speak. And it could not have just been random thoughts of me, just because I had been in that situation countless number of times. I was fine, I was okay. I had primed my mind and myself to be in that situation. It did not cross my mind that that was God pulling me out of a situation. For the first time in my life, there was a new reality. There was a new possibility. There was a different door that seemed to open in front of me. It was no longer just about making men pay or making men suffer or using men. I had a different option, or at least the possibility of a different option. It looked like there was more. What does more mean? I honestly wanted to see more. And then the series of changes that began to happen around me in that period made me to understand later on that God was really setting me up for a different life. My brother got me a book. For the first time in my life, I was reading a self-help book. With that self-help book, I realized that I actually love to read. I started to listen to messages from men of God. I didn't know how to pray, but I always just told God, God, direct my life. God, direct my... I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to start from here. But there was a seed that said there was more that I could have, that was already burning inside me, was already growing inside me. I didn't know what more was. I didn't know why I heard that. I didn't know what was expected of me. But I knew that there was another option. I don't have to settle for this lifestyle. And even though I couldn't see what that more looked like, I could not stop thinking about it. I could not stop gravitating towards it. The idea that there is a different door, the idea that there is another option, the idea that I could have a totally different life just kept sitting in my heart. I would say God held my hand, because Looking back in hindsight, I see how the things that I did not understand, the things that seemed like they were heartbreaking situations, the things that seemed like disappointments, the things that seemed to not make sense much at the time, I now realize that God was taking me through all of those events so that I could be here today. And I'm here right now so that I can be in a different platform tomorrow. So I went from exploring garbage to exploring to see what more was. But I wasn't particularly actively exploring. I just knew that there was something else, and I didn't know what it was that I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. And bit by bit, God began to take away all the layers of nonsense that had wrapped around my life. Starting from that singular moment, hearing something speak to me. And now that I understand, I know that it was not something. It was God the whole time. And that's why when I worship differently. Because I look back and I think about my life and how it could have gone terribly sour. But God just said, no, not this one. This one will spoil. This one will cast. We're not going to throw this one away. It's honestly beats my imagination, because I don't know why. I don't think I'm special. But God said, no, I'm not going to let you drown. I'm not going to let you waste. He broke all the mindsets I had built, all the convictions I had at the time around myself, and He spoke to me. And this makes me understand that a lot of the times God is speaking to us, and sometimes He has to do much more than just speak. He has to call our attention. He has to create a situation. He has to create an uneasiness in your spirit, a discomfort, something to grab your attention so that you can actually hear Him. But God is ready to speak to you, and He does speak to us. We often make statements like, I was in this car, I was about to go for this journey, I was about to do this, and then something just told me. There is always something. Something is always tolding you something. It is not something. It is God imprinting a prompt in your spirit that is causing you to not make the wrong decisions, that is causing you to make the right decisions. Something wants to fix your life. God honestly wants to uncomplicate your life and set you on the right path to your purpose. It doesn't matter how far you think you've gone. It doesn't matter how terrible you think you are. There is someone somewhere that has a worse story than you that God has pulled back into the fold. And the only reason why God is doing this, all of these nudgings, these leadings, these prompts in your spirit, what we call something, the only reason why God is stirring all of this inside of you is to make you remember that He has a beautiful life ahead of you. And this is not just about immorality right now. Sometimes you might have a decent life. You might seem to be on the right path in terms of morality and decency, but that can still be wrong for you. And there tend to be these promptings, there tend to be these nudgings in your spirit, and God is calling you to a different reality. All you have to do is silence the noise, heed to your spirit, and follow the leading of your spirit. Purpose is literally a series of instructions obeyed, a series of nudgings obeyed. He wants to lead you, but you have to silence the noise and let Him fix your life.